So it's really cool that, yeah, that Tom Cruise came on board and was just, it looks like they were just having so much fun. Like the director and him of just like, let's do so many sick action,
Yeah.
like fights and um, stunts and chases.
Welcome back to the Men's Adventure Fiction Podcast. We have another holiday special coming at you guys. Happy Valentine's Day, a little early. Not the most classic Men's Adventure Fiction holiday, but we're here to talk about some really fun stuff. How are you doing, Luke? How's your day been so far?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's been a good day. Like I told you, I've been up for a while, so I got to watch a lot of westerns and decided to trim a mustache after seeing some stashes from
Looks
the
good,
70s.
dude.
So I just been, having a lazy good day before I work like 6 days next week. So it's been nice.
Yeah, that's good. This is technically our second recording after a long hiatus because I had a child on January 16th, but we'll talk about that more in further episodes. Yeah.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's good to be back, dude. Good to be back talking men's adventure fiction with my bro, LS Goodish.
Yeah,
Nothing
it
better.
doesn't get better than this. And as you said, it's not necessarily the holiday that comes to mind if you're going to say men's adventure fiction, Valentine's Day and romance and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people who are fans of this may, shy away and be like, where are we going with this? What's this special about? But I think it's honestly why a lot of fans of this genre have probably missed out on two of the coolest action movies out
Oh,
there,
for sure.
which is exactly what we're talking about today. Night and Day and This Means War are two rom-coms that like mix men's adventure fiction action plot lines into them. And I think they're two of the best examples of that mixing of the genres because I'm sure there's tons of ones that don't hit the mark that try to do the mixture and they just don't land. But I think you and I can both agree these two are solid action films just as
Yeah,
much as
for
they're
real.
solid romance films. So
Yeah. And it's to this point, I don't know if it's embarrassing. Not, and it's not embarrassing because it's a rom com. It's more embarrassing just because it's like a very low rated movie. But Night and Day is one of my favorite movies of all time. I remember the first time I ever watched it, I was like blown away by how good it was because I mean, I think it's got like under 60% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like a solid 6 out of 10 on IMDb. So you go in
yeah,
expecting really nothing. You also know that it's going to be a rom com. So you're like, oh, there's no way this movie can be good. But I mean, we could just start talking about Night and Day and get to This Means War afterwards. But it just knocks your socks off. I mean, it's Tom Cruise, so you know that he's going to be bringing his A game.
right.
And they do a really good job of kind of having him, because Tom Cruise has played a lot of spies in his time. So it's good to have him come in with kind of like a fresh perspective where a lot of his things that he says, it's almost like a caricature of all of his other characters, but it's done so well. And it's just seriously such a good movie.
Yeah, good point on like the way he goes about it. It's like a little bit tongue in cheek. It's not like
Yeah.
over the top spoof material, but it's a little bit funny. Like he's always like cracking jokes and smiling. Like in some of the, I don't know, we don't want to do huge spoilers, but we'll talk about some of these action set pieces. So I can't avoid like when the plane's going down, his like
Yeah.
smile and just like how he's talking about it. It's like, dude, he doesn't get to be that goofy, I think, and playful in the Mission Impossible. So it's
Right.
funny to see him in like Mission Impossible sized and scoped situations, but with this humor and the way he goes about it,
Yeah.
it makes it so enjoyable.
Yeah, for real. And that's to that point, you go into this movie thinking like, okay, this is going to be like a cutesy film, I guess. Like I'm not really sure what to expect. And literally like moments into the movie, you're having one of the craziest fight scenes of all time, followed by another crazy set piece, another crazy set piece, another crazy set piece. So it really just pedal to the metal. And it is funny as well. I mean, the first thought that comes to mind is on the plane when they're having the so they get onto a plane and it's just filled with a bunch of people trying to kill Tom Cruise's character Roy Miller, and they force Cameron Diaz's character June to go on the plane with him, to kind of keep them like in a tricky spot because they think that she means something to him. And really, he just used her as a mule to get something through security because she has a bunch of car parts. So he's able to like sneak something onto the plane. And there's a scene where a guy throws a knife at him, and he like luckily grabs the seat cushion, and the knife goes like right at his crotch, and he looks up, he's like, "Dude, come on!" And he like grabs the knife and kills the dude right away. It's just so cool. And what's really cool and well done about it too is that whole first scene. It's like played for laughs because he's trying not to let her know that
Right.
the whole entire plane's filled
One
with
of the funniest parts.
yeah. But it also doesn't lose its punch because of that. I mean, there's some like wild kills in that sequence. I think he like takes the chair armrest and slaps it down on someone's throat or something
Yeah,
like that.
the action throughout is pretty intense, and that's where, going back to my viewing experience for this the first time, it was off of your recommendation, right? And you had already tried to, like, for those of you who've seen our episode on Mission Impossible, I already had to be convinced to see Mission Impossible because I didn't really like Tom Cruise, and I was like, I don't know. And then I loved them, but it was a bridge further to be like, watch this romantic, like, comedy with Tom Cruise. I was like, there's no way.
No
There's
chance.
just no way.
I know.
But when I put it on, exactly like you're saying, from the first instant you start, it's just the most insane action, but it has that Tom Cruise level of authenticity you and I are always talking about, where he's
Right.
like going to put some extra care into making sure that it's mostly practical when they can. The stunts are so, he's doing them so you can see his face the whole time. It's more
Yeah.
visceral, and yeah, like had a level of action in it that I'm sure back then it felt a little more typical, I guess. But now, like, our action movies are severely lacking. Like, most of them go straight to Netflix. Like, they're
Yeah.
not. They don't have this level of, I guess, just like scope and impressive set pieces. Like the way that some of these car flips happen, and
Yeah,
like
dude.
you're right up on the action. You're like, this is insane. That's a real car smashing and tumbling. You're like, this is nuts. It's not CGI. It's so cool. So yeah, I was blown away. And I think James Mangold, did he direct this?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, and like he's a super well respected director.
I
So
know, he
this
did.
movie does not get the respect it deserves for sure.
I know. That's what I was hanging out with some of my friends, and we were smoking cigars and talking about favorite movies. I was like, I hate. You're not gonna believe me when I say this, but Night and Day is one of my favorites. And they were like, "That's James Mangold. That's the guy who did Logan, and he also now has done an Indiana Jones movie." So this is
yeah.
another example of a guy who really kind of understands like men's adventure fiction, I think.
Right.
And Night and Day is a prime example. Also has a really solid female character. She's not kind of just a damsel in distress. I mean, there's some times where she's like finding her own. She's also in like a crazy scenario where
Right.
essentially after the airplane stuff, the CIA comes. So Roy Miller is on the run from the CIA because he's been double crossed, and he has this battery that can like keep city. It's just like clean power, and he's trying to get it out of the bad guy's hands who works for the CIA. So there's this whole like back and forth of, oh, is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? Really, really cool aspect there. And then they come to take her because they think that she's connected with him once again. And it leads into what you were saying, the car chase scene, dude. One of the coolest set pieces of all time. He's like hanging off of cars. He has every gun imaginable on his person somehow. He goes through like 8 guns in this one sequence. And it starts with him getting her out of the diner. And he like grabs her and he's pretending to hold her at gunpoint. And he's like, he knocks over a waiter, like kicks him. He's like, "Oh, sorry, saw you moving out of the corner of my eye. Didn't realize who you were." And then he's like, "Pie for everybody. No ice cream though. Ice cream weakens the knees." It's just like
That's so funny.
he's just like a stream of consciousness as he kidnaps this girl. It's
Yeah.
too good. So it's just, and then that, like I said, that chase scene on the highway, on the cars, dude.
Yeah, that sequence. If you're not sold on the movie, I think if you just Google, like, a YouTube that scene and watch
Yeah,
it,
for real.
and you see like the level of action we're talking about, you'll be bought in because yeah, it's also a romance movie, so there's some like rom-com-esque elements to it,
Yep.
but it does not dilute the action in any sense. Like, I can't stress that enough that it felt like an actual, and I don't even think I can say the same for the second film. Like, this felt like an actual like action movie, like an actual,
Yeah.
just as much of an action film as Extraction or something on Netflix.
Yeah.
Same level of stunt work and explosives
real.
and cars flipping it. Is that I forget if they're two sequences or not, but the motorcycle chase in this might also be one of the sickest
Yeah, dude.
chases ever, where the flip maneuver with Cameron Diaz onto
Yeah,
his
dude, that
lap and
is too
stuff.
cool. And she takes his gun and starts blasting it. Yeah. Um,
That is too sick.
yeah, and to your point, I think that it it almost has, if this was like a serious movie, you would be thinking like there's no the it doesn't make sense for there to be this much action. But because it is comedy based,
Yeah.
and I think Cameron Diaz's character is almost like the narrator to some degree.
Yeah, she's like our stand-in in a way
Yeah, yeah,
too.
exactly. We're kind of just like following along, and we're like, "Whoa, this
Like,
is
what's
crazy."
happening? Yeah.
And Tom Cruise, there's a handful of direct addresses to the camera because it's a recurring theme that anytime things get too stressful, he uses some sort of drug or like a Vulcan death grip to knock her out, so she doesn't just like start spazzing out on him.
Yeah.
And there's like one scene where he's hanging upside down and they're captured, and he's like shirtless and he drops down and like comes up to the camera like, "Don't worry, I'm gonna get us out of this. Trust me." It's like, so you are pulled in, and I think that that's why there's so much action, is because as the viewer, as the character June, you're watching this and you're like, how can we be in another action scene? This is crazy.
Right.
So it's like it is like dialed up to 10, and I think that that's why it's such a good action movie, is because they build a world where you're like not expecting there to possibly be another action sequence, and it just goes right into the next one, and they're all really well done. I mean, there's even a whole train sequence, and I think it's
there
the
is.
Orient Express, and there's a dude who has a knife, and he's there for them, and they kick him off. It's just like, it's literally so classic. It just has so many of the classic tropes that you want from an action
And you
movie.
could tell why Tom Cruise wanted to do this movie. You know what I mean? It was just like a perfect kind of like buffet of, I get to do this action scene and this action scene and this
Yeah,
action
yeah.
scene. Oh, sweet. You know? I heard that he kind of like, as he does, took a lot of control and like added a lot of these ideas too. So
Oh,
it's a
really?
very Tom Cruise, type movie where, because the script, dude, if you look into the production of this movie, it was a horrible time getting this made. It was like, they had
way.
so many writers at a certain point that the Writers Guild was kind of like, they weren't sure who was going to get credit, and it was kind of like a back and forth battle because there was
Dude.
so many different people this movie changed hands with, and so many different actors were gonna be Tom Cruise. Like Adam Sandler, I'm pretty sure was gonna
What?
be in it. I forget who some of the other ones, but Adam Sandler stuck out to me.
So,
But yeah,
well,
look,
and I feel like that's the reason why we're here saying like, you gotta believe us, action, romance, comedy can be good, because they do
Yeah.
get like Adam Sandler, and they're like, let's throw him in there, and
Right.
it's just not going to be believable at all that he could possibly be a real spy. So to
Yeah.
have the validity, the validation of Tom Cruise, like already one of the greatest spy actors of all time, playing Roy Miller, is so good.
it's a good point. It's really Tom Cruise made that movie what it was, I'm sure, because imagine it going forward with Adam Sandler. Those scenes are not happening, and they're not happening in the way they would have ended up happening.
Yeah, that's really true.
Like, dude, seeing him on seeing Adam Sandler on a motorcycle do that flip over thing, there's just no way, dude. I love Adam Sandler, but that's not happening.
Right.
So it's really cool that, that Tom Cruise came on board and was just, it looks like they were just having so much fun. Like the director and him of just like, let's do so many sick action,
Yeah.
like fights and stunts and chases. I can't say enough for the action. Also, the comedy. Like, have you ever seen Tropic Thunder? Like Tom
Yeah.
Cruise's cameo? He's one of the funnier guys out there. Like, he's actually very, very funny.
Yeah, he is.
So to see him in this, get to be funny, because there's funny moments in the Mission Impossibles for sure. But again, same thing. It's not going for that, and it doesn't want
Right.
to take away from the serious nature, especially in some of these later ones. It's like
Yeah.
too high stakes. You don't want to joke around too much. But getting him to just be able to joke around, dude, it's such an enjoyable experience.
Right.
Just flat out enjoyable.
Yeah, especially too because he is, like you said, it is a new side of Tom Cruise that you don't always get. I feel like most of the time there's funny scenes in Mission Impossible. Usually that falls to Benji to kind of bring
Yep.
those, and then it's also kind of just like Ethan being totally like blown away by how crazy his next thing he has to do is. Like I
Right.
remember the one scene where they're talking about getting into the water tank to switch the IDs chips for Benji to go through and walk through because it has the gait and recognition thing. And Benji's like, "Oh, you just have to hold your breath for 3 minutes? That's no problem. You can do that for sure." And Ethan's like, "What? like, what? No, I can't. Like, what are you talking about?" So I think that that's like usually where the comedy gets limited to the Mission
Right.
Impossible. But Night and Day, it is just. I mean, every line Tom Cruise says in that movie is so funny. He even does he says like, "All right, you can go on your own, or you can come with me. But if you go on your own, this is like your life expectancy is here." And he says, "With me, without me, with me, without me." And then he like walks away and he comes back like, "With me, without me." And it's just so intense, but so funny. It's so well done because I think it's a really good example of putting the audience in a. Tom Cruise is taking himself seriously the whole entire time, even though the things are not serious. And I think that he's doing that. He's also like literally walking through so many things for Cameron Diaz's character because she's in a super stressful situation. Like he's used to getting shot at, he's used to getting chased, he's used to having to jump off of buildings and jump off of cars onto other cars, but she's just like totally out of her element. So he's like walking through that with her, teaching her little tricks as they go through. And I think that that's what makes it so. It's just I can't talk about how much I love this movie enough because it's so good. I mean, there's 2 or 3 really cool parkour chases too. I remember
Yeah.
they go to Paris and this is going to divulge into the costuming is also sick, but I'll jump back into that in a second. And he goes and he has a meeting and then he sets it up, or basically the CIA somehow get called in and he has to run across the rooftops in
Of course.
France.
Got
It may
to.
not be Paris. It's somewhere in France though, and it's just such a cool scene. And he has a really nice suit on, and he's got a pistol and he's shooting, and he ends up just so good. And then there's also a scene towards the end of the movie where he like runs and he sees the bad guy getting away and there's no way to get down. He's like on an overpass and he just jumps onto this like little fishing hut and the whole thing just breaks and you just see him like run out of the rubble. It's such a classic shot. So it's just so cool.
Dude, that made me think of another point that makes me understand why you like it so much too. Is one of the things that you and I have talked about how we differ in our writing. Is you're so much better at the globetrotting type things, and I think you appreciate globetrotting stories really well. And Mission Impossible is always great globetrotting. This one actually does a bit of that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we jump locations quite a bit in this movie, more than you'd expect. I think This Means War. Do you jump locations maybe twice, if that ever? But Night and Day, I think there's a ton of different
Yeah,
globe
for real.
trotting adventure type things in there. So it really does fit the bill for. It's almost like a weird cousin to a Mission Impossible. Like it's almost like Ethan
Yeah.
Hunt's like alternate universe comedy side because it almost feels on the level of a Mission Impossible film with its.
Yeah.
Because I mean, James Mangold could 100% direct a Mission Impossible. You know
Yeah,
what I
he
mean? It's
sure
not
could.
out of the question. And you already have Tom Cruise, so it's like it very much could fit into the level of one of those,
Right.
which is sick
Yes.
for a romantic movie. Us even bringing that into the conversation should tell you enough. Like this is insane. You know, that's a wild accusations.
Yeah. And to this point, one of the reasons to do this episode, this will go live the Wednesday before Valentine's Day. So maybe you're watching this and you're like, dude, I know my wife or my girlfriend's going to want to watch a rom-com. And you're like, all right, well, now I've got 2 in the pipeline. They
Right.
just talked about how good Night and Day was. Because that's what I think that the reason these movies don't do well critically is because not many people really want them, right? Like they're not 2 things. Like you can have a really good romantic epic war or adventure movie, something like Australia or Legends of the Fall, something like that, or even like 1923 has aspects of
Yeah.
that. So you have like very big stakes, and the romance is a huge aspect of that. But not many people are like, well, first of all, action comedies have a hard time succeeding in the first place. But then to throw in action, romance, comedy. So I think that you get a lot of women who are like, oh, that looks kind of cool. Let's go watch it. And then if it's too action heavy, they're like, this is terrible. Then you get a
Right.
lot of men who are like, there's no chance I'm going to watch that. So the actual target audience, just never even check it out. or if they do, they're like, okay, I don't know why they just didn't go like, why didn't they actually just make it a full action movie? Even though
Right.
I do personally believe both of these movies really fall into the full action movie side of things. But it's a bummer because to have movies like my wife loves Night and Day, and I watched This Means War when I was like 12 or 15 or something like that, and I hadn't seen it since. So we just watched it, and she loved it. She loved it the whole
Yeah.
time. So it is like a real good marriage of the two, and very entertaining when done right. But that's the problem is a lot of times it's done very poorly.
And the marketing, dude, what a disaster that must be trying to market these movies. Because if your trailer looks too much like this is a spy flick, like you said, some of the women in the audience might be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a spy film. Maybe they see it because they like spy films, but they're not going to go see it because it's a romance if it's
Right.
looking like that. And then a guy, if you market it too much like a romance, they're going to be like, oh, I guess I'll wait for the next Mission Impossible, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
you're
it's
not
tough.
realizing you missed out like on a sick action movie. So yeah, it's got to be one of the tougher marketing deals, you know?
Yeah, for real. Yeah, but and that's why this one does work is because of Tom Cruise. And to kind of circle back to like your point, it does have I mean it starts in the airport, it goes to Boston, then it goes to somewhere else, I think near Boston, maybe in like a port area, and then they go to an island somewhere.
Yeah.
And then they get captured, and then they go to the Orient Express. And that's what's so cool about it too, is like you have all these different scenes. It's also kind of bumpered with she has her sister's wedding in like a week. So she's caught up in the middle of this crazy adventure right before her sister's wedding. It's like, is he going to be able to get her back in time for the wedding? She going to have to miss her sister's wedding. There's so many different aspects, but the whole time you're getting all these different, really sick outfits from Ethan specifically. I mean, I don't care as much about women's like outfits in film
Yeah.
because I never think like, oh,
I'm
that's
aware
how
of
I'll
that.
dress. Yeah. So I mean, he wears on the Orient Express. I think he's wearing a sick turtleneck sweater with a pea coat. At the end sequence in Madrid, he's wearing a jean shirt with a white undershirt and two pistols like strapped on either side. Nice pair of black jeans, I think. His starting outfit is a really nice V-neck sweater with a white undershirt, and then kind of like one of those Harrington jackets, dude. It's just like the styling is so well done because they know this is a big budget spy movie, and we got to make them look like that because it just makes you buy in even more to the whole thing. So yeah, very fun movie.
Gotta check it out and let us know. Report back what you think. Or if you have seen it, on the off chance, you know that you're already a huge fan, let us know that too. Because, yeah, it's definitely one that takes a minute. It takes a solid friendship like Nathaniel and I had for him to be able to pitch that and be like, watch this. And it takes that trust to be like, okay, maybe I'll watch it. So hopefully you take the leap of faith and try to watch it and you enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and to that point, there's not any other movie that I can think of. Like every once in a while, maybe like once every other year or once a year, I'm just like, man, there's just nothing that's gonna like meet the night and day itch that I have. Like there's nothing quite like it because it has very like Bond influences. I think there's a lot of similarities to was it Spectre when they're on the train with Daniel Craig and
Yeah, I
yeah,
believe so. Yeah, where
I
he
think
throws.
I
Is
think
that
so. Yeah.
Batista he's fighting on the
Yeah,
train?
dude. So there's like
Too nice.
so much Bond DNA to it, and then there's also Mission Impossible DNA. It's like kind of if you got to see Tom Cruise play Bond, and so like probably once a year, I'm like, all right, Caroline, it's night and day time. Let's watch this movie again because it does
Nice.
it checks so many boxes for me. But that can bring us right into talking about another movie that's criminally underrated in this
Yeah,
means
dude.
war.
Another spy film too. It's interesting that these are both end up being spy adventure romance
Yeah.
movies because there's definitely like treasure hunting romance movies like that recent one with Channing Tatum,
Oh yeah, The Lost City.
Lost City. Yeah, like there's stuff like that. But it's funny that we picked two CIA kind of like spy ones. But they're two of our favorites because This Means War stars Chris Pine and Tom Hardy, and then we're talking like. What is this? What year did this come out?
I don't know,
2012 or 2011 or something? I
Yeah,
don't
maybe
know.
even 2010.
Yeah,
I'll look it up.
it's a young. Yeah, while you're looking that up, I'm going to say it is a young Tom Hardy. and
2012.
he's
Good call.
2012. Nice. He's skinnier. He's like lighthearted. He's
Not
funnier.
as jaded.
Not as jaded. It's a very. It's so cool seeing like this cast. Chris Pine and Tom Hardy playing off each other back and
Yeah.
forth as like these buddy cop but buddy CIA operatives. So I think as like a buddy like friendship film, one of the best.
Seriously.
It's so cool because when do you see two spies, in a movie that
Yeah.
often?
Not
In
often.
Mission Impossible with Henry Cavill, kind of
Yeah.
for a minute,
And you have like a whole team, but it's not like
right?
two parts.
Man from Uncle, maybe.
Yeah. But
It's like
that's what's so good is they're both like top of their game too. It's
Yeah.
not like one's like, oh, he's clearly the like second spy.
right. So I love that aspect of it. Like the bromance part is just as cool as the romance part in that movie. So I think we said this before we recorded, but I'll say it here. I think Night and Day is a better action movie, and then This Means War is kind of a better romance movie. But that is not to say it's not worth watching or it doesn't have sweet action.
Yeah.
It's just you get more like character moments, you get more funny comedy rather than big action set pieces. So with that said, and you coming off Night and Day being your recommendation, this being mine, what was your take on rewatch of This Means War? Did it hold up, or were you like, this is a little bit boring? Wish there was more fights. Like, what's your take?
No, it's so good. I remember seeing the trailers for it in 2011, 2012,
Yeah.
and being like, oh man, I'm so pumped to see this. And then it came out, and it has like 25% on Rotten Tomatoes, and everybody hated it. And I was like, dude, what? And so I think it went. I didn't get to see it in the theaters, and then I couldn't find it streaming. And then a couple months later, I found it, and I was like, all right, I got to watch this. It's such a good movie. I don't know why. I think it just goes back to what we were saying. Like, okay, who is this necessarily for?
Right.
But my wife loved it too, and we were both laughing the whole time.
Yeah.
It's so funny. The action is really, really well done. I mean, the opening sequence. Are they in
Yeah, dude.
Shanghai
I think they are.
or Hong
Yeah, it's
Kong?
like
It might have been
Hong Kong or Shanghai, but they're like in suits
I know,
and they're
dude.
going through like a club, very John Wick style too. Like,
Yeah, dude. I was
shooting from
thinking
the
that.
hip and like coming out onto the platform with the helicopter. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, what I love about the action in this one is like it's way more understated, but it's very like slick
Mm-hmm.
and like to your point of Bondian, like it's very like
Yeah.
just like clean, crisp, cool suits. Everybody's cool as hell in that movie. Like
for real.
I want to be Chris Pine, I want to be Tom Hardy. Like they got
I
sick
know, right?
outfits. So it's just like a very cool movie with very cool, fun action.
Right.
Just definitely not. They didn't go as hard as Night and Day. They just needed Tom Cruise to come be the stunt coordinator.
Well, I mean, and they do what's cool about this movie is, so Night and Day, I feel like runs through a plot line, right? Like the goal is the MacGuffin, and it never really deviates from that. Whereas this
Yeah.
movie, the goal is, what's his name's Heinrich, right? He's
Yeah,
the-
let me get both their names up real quick because I don't remember. But that's the bad
well,
guy.
Yeah, Heinrich's the bad guy, and it's FDR and Tuck.
Tough,
and-
dude. What a name.
Yeah, what a name. And so their original goal is to get Heinrich and stop him. And then kind of like the case runs cold. He gets away after they kill his brother. And then they just go back to their kind of like normal jobs. So it isn't as much like driven by the story. It's more driven by the characters, which I think it really benefits from. Because, and this is what the tragedy of these movies are, is seeing Chris Pine and Tom Hardy reprise these roles for like 5 movies of them being
Dude, that'd be amazing.
a buddy cop CIA agents, and the next one wouldn't be able to be romance as much unless it was kind of just them going.
Well, Tom
after.
Hardy could be rekindling his relationship, and
Yeah,
there could be
he could
like struggling with the Reese Witherspoon relationship. Not to spoil it for who ends up with who. It's
No,
pretty
no, no.
obvious. I think it's pretty obvious who's
think
gonna end
so,
up with
too.
who, though. In a lot of romance movies, this one, like especially where it's just like if a character is set up with a certain backstory and a certain like situation, you're like, okay,
you definitely see it
all right,
coming.
see writing on the wall here.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what's good about it too, is that it's like you see as characters realize that this is the first time that this has ever really happened for them. Like they may actually be falling in love for the first time. So it is well done, but then it shifts from the goal of like agent jobs. So they're originally like, oh, this is to help with the Heinrich case. I need you to put
Right.
surveillance on this girl because basically the one guy ends up matching with her on a dating app, and the other
Hmm.
guy goes to like kind of give him backup because he hasn't dated in years, and he's at the video store and he runs into her after the date and he starts making moves on her. So then they find out that they're both like interested in the same girl, and she decides to just like date both of them at the same time, which is
Right.
kind of a dirtbag move. Kind of not. I mean, it's a classic
It's all from that friend, dude. That horrible
that
character.
horrible friend. Worst part of the show for sure.
We'll get to that, but yeah, that's what's funny and cool about that movie is that they're using their spy tactics and like all that for the romance plot. It's very silly in that sense where
Yeah,
like the
classic comedy. It's a
yeah,
great
dude.
trope.
Like Tom Hardy with the sniper,
Yeah,
he's
dude.
like an inch to the left, I could have been dead, and he's like half an inch. It's
I know
like
it's so good.
classic stuff, dude.
And
Go ahead.
you talked about this yesterday. So they have like bugs planted all throughout her house, so they hear her talking to her friend about
Hmm.
what she doesn't like about them, and they use that information to better themselves. So Reese Witherspoon's like, I just feel too safe with Tuck. And he's like, safe, huh? I'm a spy. I'm an assassin. And so he just
Yeah,
goes absolutely berserk. And what you said was one of your favorite scenes, right?
yeah, dude. They go to a paintball, and he like just imagine a CIA level, like James Bond level operative, like a Jason Bourne level operative going against just guys in paintball, and he's just wrecking crew, dude, jumping rooftop to
I
rooftop and
know,
like
it's so good.
shooting dudes in the face, throwing the bombs in there. Like, it's
Yeah, there's
so,
a bunch of kids in the one hut. He drops a paintball bomb in there.
it's too funny.
The one kid was like, I'm scared.
Yeah,
My
you hear
wife,
like the thing shake as he like lands on it.
my wife was cracking up the whole time.
Yeah.
Which is, and that's to that point. It's like this is, there's so many movies that I'm like, Caroline, you want to watch this? Like I tried to get her to watch Den of Thieves with me. She was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll try. And we probably got 20 minutes in, and I was like, are you enjoying this? She's like, yeah, I'm sucked in. Like 20 more minutes later, she was asleep on the couch. I mean, she was
Brutal.
also in like
Yeah,
later stages of pregnancy, so she was just
for sure.
tired all the time. But
Makes
it's
sense.
like this movie, I pitched it to her, and she was like, I said, do you want to watch this one? It's like a rom-com action movie. She's like, okay, I guess. I put the just cover up on the TV, and the trailer started playing. She said, oh, Chris Pine and Reese Witherspoon are in this? I'm totally in. And I was like,
Right.
she's like, why didn't you say so? I was like, I didn't think that would matter. So it is entertaining. She loved it. She was also saying it does a really good job. So Chuck is the much more like steady kind of
Yeah.
like good guy, whereas Chris
This is
Pine
the
is
Tom Hardy character, yeah.
yeah,
Tuck.
yeah. Chris Pine's FDR character is more of like your classic womanizing secret agent. And so she was like, it's crazy that I was rooting for Chris Pine the whole time. Like they did a really good job of making him
Yeah.
kind of like a dirtbag weasel, but he still has like a heart of gold that you're rooting for. Like I do want him to end up with the girl.
Yeah, they do a very good job with his character. I'm thinking of the scene where like he goes back was at his mom's house and like they're looking at the
Yeah.
pictures. Some of that stuff that they used to like give him backstory and give him, like you said, heart, rather than him just being like a one note, like just generic kind of like womanizer. He's very,
Yeah.
very well written character. And Tuck, same thing. Like I like that all these characters are layered, and so it's very satisfying from an audience perspective, like a crowd pleaser in that sense, where it's like these characters are set up and written in a way that one, they're multidimensional, they're layered, and you get each plot line to kind of like resolve how you want it to, and you're kind
Right.
of like, yeah, at the end, and
Right.
there's no disappointments, because in a movie like Warrior with Tom Hardy, there's a lot of contention or debate about who's right.
Right.
Which brother's the good guy, which one's the bad guy. And luckily, it wasn't like that, where it's like, oh, I'm rooting. Hopefully, he ends up with her, and then it doesn't. And half the audience is like, okay. I think they do a good
I'm so
job of,
pissed.
yeah, I think they do a good job of like making it an acceptable ending for everyone, because that's you don't want to alienate half the audience in a romantic comedy. It's
Yeah.
not the movie for that.
No. Well, and I think to that point, and also to the point of this being a great movie for the boys, to what you talked about earlier, you start out with two characters who have very clear, like, these dudes have been friends forever, and they're like locked in. I love the running gag of Tom Hardy only having one magazine and Chris Pine being almost like his weapons
Yeah.
valet. He's like, magazine. He's like, dude, why don't you have another magazine? It's too funny. And so that you have this, and this is what I'm saying. This is why we lost something as a people. We lost having Tom Hardy and Chris Pine reprise
Yeah.
roles as this, because it's, and this, I mean, Luke and I talked, this is like a quick sidebar. These are characters, Chris Pine, Tom Hardy, these are dudes that you wanted to see. This is 2012. We should have had 13 years of them headlining action movies, because they did such a good job. And it's just, oh, it didn't hit the right audience. Everyone hated this movie. And now they're not like, okay, action movies maybe aren't for me. But I love Chris Pine. He's one of my favorite actors. But unfortunately, he just is in a lot of stinkers of movies and really hasn't like gotten to where he needs to be. And Tom Hardy is always playing good characters, but in like kind of
Like
strange,
dramas.
strange roles. I mean, like Bane, he needs to wear a mask for a lot of stuff. I mean, Tom Hardy killed it in Inception as, what's his name, Eames or something
Yeah,
like that?
dude, that guy's a sick character. I often look at his outfit and I'm like, that's a sick
Yeah,
guy.
dude.
You know what I mean? I'm like,
He's a
I'll be
great-
looking at
A
Tom
great
Hardy pictures. I'll look him up.
scoundrel character. And it's just like, we're robbed of this stuff. But yeah, outfit fire.
I just remember seeing that and being like, dude, why isn't he a mobster? And then it's like, oh, I finally, dude, he's playing Al Capone. That's so.
no.
Oh, okay, what? You see the movie and you're like, what is this?
Well, then he
Is
was
he
also,
pooping his pants?
wasn't
Seriously.
he in the Legend movie? Where
Yeah,
he
he was-
was
that's
the
pretty
twin
sick.
brothers?
Yeah, that's
Yeah?
pretty sick.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I have not watched that one. But
It's the Cray brothers. It's not like as good as you would want it to be, but it's pretty sweet. Way better than the Capone movie. Have you seen the
nice.
Capone
I
movie?
have not seen the Capone movie.
Don't do it, dude. It's like him in his later stage dementias and stuff. And
No, dude. Who wants
it's
that?
like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah,
But he's a great actor. He was in my favorite movie last year, The Bike Riders,
Right.
and he was phenomenal. But I wish we could have got him as just a straight spy in more movies, or a straight gangster in more movies. So,
yeah.
unfortunate.
Well, it's cool that he does seem to have a pretty clear men's adventure fiction. I mean, he's in Mad Max, for Pete's sake. That's
Right.
pretty much as crazy. That movie, I remember watching that movie and being like, wow, what the heck is going on? I love this. It's like
Wild
so,
movie, dude.
so crazy.
Speaking of him, while we're on this point, I'm gonna look up what he's got coming out, because maybe there's still time, dude.
Yeah.
I just saw all those Venoms come up as far as what he's known for, but I've only seen Venom 1. I hated Venom 2. Or I guess I only liked Venom 1. I didn't like Venom 2 at all. Haven't seen Venom 3.
Yeah, I saw Venom 1. Didn't inspire me to watch any of the other ones. What's also interesting is Chris Pine did his writing and directorial debut was Pool Man, which apparently was
Oh,
like,
yeah, I heard that's pretty awful. Huh?
I've also heard that, but the premise sounds pretty cool. He's basically like a homeless hippie dude who
Okay.
ends up finding out that things aren't going the way that he wants in LA. And so he either tries to run for some sort of political office and he can't. And then he ends up having to do this like crazy private investigation gig in
Okay.
1970s Los Angeles. So it looked like it was going to be pretty funny and pretty entertaining. And then it released and everybody hated it. So I have not circled back to check it out.
We'll
But
have to
does
give it
look-
a shot. We'll have
Yeah,
to give
well,
it a shot.
so it has like a kind of kooky noir thing going on, which I'm interested
Yeah.
in seeing if it's any good. But we'll see.
Yeah, there is sometimes where that doesn't work out. Like I remember this movie with Charlie Hunnam and Mel Gibson came out like that. It was like
Oh,
a
no.
kooky noir thing, and it wasn't so sick. But dude, looking at his IMDb gives me hope, because I forgot
yeah?
about this movie, dude. Do you remember hearing about Havoc? Have you heard about this?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's like it's from the people who do Raid, like the
Okay,
Raid
cool.
Redemption movies, and he's like a cop. I'm pretty sure going through like a wasteland of a city, just like taking dudes
Sick,
out for
dude.
the entire thing. So that should be pretty sick.
That should be sick.
So hopefully that's amazing. The shots look cool, like the pictures of it.
Yeah.
He's like
Oh,
in a
yeah. Look at that.
he's
Yeah,
got
I
a
think-
shotgun and
Did
like
the trailer come out for that? I feel like I saw something about that.
probably
And it
at
looked
this point
really
probably.
solid.
Yeah, so there is still hope for Tom Hardy. Chris Pine, he just keeps getting the stinkers, dude. Like I remember Contractor,
really
was that the
does.
movie? There's a movie called The Contractor with him and
Yeah.
Ben Foster, and I heard like it looked sick, and then I heard same thing, like people
That one was
hate it.
okay. That was
Okay.
okay.
I've not seen it.
He was also in another spy movie. They
Really?
came out at the same time, and both of them went straight to DVD. This one was much more of a like slow burn drama.
Any good?
It was okay. It was, if you
Damn,
like a
dude,
slow
Chris,
burn
let's go.
drama spy movie, it was good.
Okay.
Basically, he like there was a mission that they were on in 1980s, and someone totally like blew the mission and gave information away. And it's years later now, and they're reinvestigating it. And so it kind of takes place at a dinner interview with him and the love interest, and they're trying to like piece together what happened. So it has like some cool cutbacks. It's a pretty good. It's a good exercise in like a political thriller storytelling spy, because I think they were on the diplomatic team in a Middle Eastern country, or like France, and there was some sort of terror attack. Pretty fun. And then that right after that was the contractor one, and that was very interesting. I really enjoyed the potential. It almost was like a James Reese story, and it just, I think he just somehow has a really bad agent who doesn't get
Yeah,
like
dude.
the right people lined up, because it had so much potential to be so good, and then it kind of fell a little flat.
Yeah, I know because when I saw the trailer, it was Ben Foster and him in a very similar sounding plot to Hell or High Water, and that is
Yeah,
like one
that's
of my
true.
favorite movies of all time. I love that movie, so I was like, dude, but this in like an action adventure setting instead of like a western setting, like
Yeah,
this could be so sick. And I never saw it,
you should check it out. I
so
think you,
maybe I'll like it. Maybe
yeah,
I'll
I
like
think
it.
you probably would like it. I feel like it probably, it's not as good as Land of Bad, but I think it probably got the same sort
Nice.
of like immediate push to mediocrity, just because it's like a
Yeah,
straight to streaming. Because Land of
Land
Bad
of
is,
Bad is very good.
yeah, very good. This one's like, maybe if Land of Bad's a 10 out of 10, this is probably like 8, 8
Okay,
or so. But it's also been probably like 2 years since I saw it, so
right,
take all that with a grain of salt. But we should revisit that. Maybe by the next episode, we can tell people if it was a stinker or
right.
not. But to circle back to this movie, so this is like kind of the devastating part, is that you have these really good actors. Both of them have shown phenomenal acting ability. I mean, even just like Chris Pine in Star Trek was such a great
Yeah,
men's adventure. He was very like Han Solo version of Captain Kirk, I feel like. Dude, this could have been long running. We could have seen them do, even if it wasn't like a direct sequel, they could have been like, all right, we had really good chemistry. Let's do this again. Because that's at the end of the movie, after all the stuff's gone down with this girl, the friendship is fractured. And you're like, dude, is it going to come back? And there's a scene where they kind of like, oh, we're so back, baby. And my wife looked over at me and said, dude, this was the romance part of the movie
yeah,
the whole time.
exactly,
Yes, it's
exactly.
all about the boys
The
getting
bromance
back
in it
together.
is amazing, dude. I love the competitive nature between the two,
Yeah.
and they show it so well, and they show it in so many different avenues. Like when they're just throwing the paper away in the bin, and then it's like he
Yeah.
throws one, he throws one, he throws one, he throws one, and then Tom Hardy gets up and leaves, and then Chris Pine gets another one because he just has to get the last one. And it's like, oh, I love it, dude.
Yeah.
It's so funny because we all have that little competitiveness with our friends, and it's so funny to see that on the screen. They did
No,
that really well. Their
seriously.
chemistry was better than their chemistry with Reese Witherspoon, honestly. Not that it was bad, it's just they were such a good,
Yeah.
like if they would have done, like you said, a Lethal Weapon style like buddy cop movie next or something, I would have paid full price to see that.
That would have
I'd
been
see
good.
that. So sick. So two solid recommendations. One's if you Night and Days if you want a nice actual action movie like on the level of Mission Impossible esque. I don't know if I'm even allowed to say that. Maybe I'm getting arrested for
No,
saying that.
I think you're right. I mean,
It's right
it's
up there,
just like
dude.
Mission Impossible and James Bond combined. So you
Yeah.
get some of the like peaks and valleys of both of those into one thing, and it's Tom Cruise, so you can't
Right.
go wrong with it. It's so good.
And like one of the fastest paced action movies out there, then go with that one. If you want to see like a more like heavier comedy, more character driven story one, then go with This Means War. They're both awesome.
Which, and it doesn't skimp on the action though.
No,
It's
it doesn't.
probably where to the point of like Night and Day is like, wow, I can't believe we're in another action sequence. This one is more paced like an actual spy movie, and it does rely on the comedy, the romance, and then you also have like cool little action sequences, like we were talking about with the paintball thing. That's a sick sequence. He literally starts the thing off by like jumping from like 12, 15 feet up onto a cross beam and swinging on and just shooting, like grabbing someone's
Yeah.
paintball gun from him and blasting them.
Yeah, it's one of it's the one of the cool things they do in that movie is, even though you're not in full on action scenes a lot, to your point, what they're doing and like how they're doing it is all still kind of related. Whether it's the sneaking through the house to
I
plant the
know. I was
bugs,
thinking about that.
the stealth. You got the like scenes where they're just training boxing, like training
Yeah.
with their trainer and stuff like that. It's very cool to see the different aspects of men's adventure fiction in that lifestyle in a way that you would never ever see it in a James Bond film,
Yeah, seriously.
and it's just cool to see like a different angle of that, like a different behind the scenes look at what that life might look like in a movie if they showed us some of that stuff, like just James Bond hanging around
Yeah.
headquarters with his friends,
Yeah, true. It is a really like I said, don't think that it is still a really solid action movie. It's not like
Yeah.
this is you're gonna watch this and be like, man, I can't believe I'm watching this romance movie. But there is comedy, there is romance, but there are some really really fun set pieces. I mean, the beginning and the end both have some sick set pieces, and there's stuff in the middle. Crazy fight scene towards the end in a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Great fist fight.
Yeah, great fist fight. And that's to the credit of this film's quality. We both brought up John Wick in a sense. Like,
Yeah.
we're not saying it's John Wick level, but if that comparison comes to your mind, they're doing something right.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
got sweet like gun fu type stuff
It does.
going on with it. I think it does that most for its action is like the gun fu, like
it's really
moving
good.
fast from the hip, shooting. The fist fights are sick though.
Yeah.
Knockdown, drag out, like
Yeah,
over
literally.
a banister type situation.
I know, dude. Yeah, it's a
Very
good movie.
sick. Yeah, let us know what you think of that one too, and if you watch both of them, if you're going to go for the whole experience, let us know
The
which one's
double
better in your
feature
opinion.
on Valentine's night, dude.
Right. You have to let us know which one you like better. But they're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I
Great
think that was a good
movies.
conversation. Good
I
times.
think so too. Yeah, if this
We-
doesn't inspire you to watch them, I don't know what will. And also, it doesn't inspire you to wish that Tom Hardy and Chris Pine would just
Yeah.
get back in another action movie together. Yeah, it's like a nice guys chemistry going on. Like we lost so much there. We can
Dude,
hope
speaking of that, we could have gotten Nice Guys too, please. That'd have been sick.
that would have been sick.
We're just talking about all the things we lost out on. Lost love, dude. Valentine's Day.
I know, lost love on Valentine's Day.
All the stuff that could have been.
A
with
moment
the
of
sequels.
silence for our lost movies.
Right? Yeah. As far as end segment, we didn't plan this far ahead, but is there any, let's say, for you, if I'm like, Night and Day was sweet, and you can't say this means war, what should I watch next? It doesn't have to be romantic. You can say one of the specific Mission Impossibles, or any whatever you would think. Like if I want to follow that up, what's your double feature?
I'll talk about two things. I'll go one that's also another like action romance comedy. Had a lot of potential, was pretty fun. Wasn't nearly as good, and this is kind of the problem is Night and Day did it so well, and everything that came after it is kind of just like essentially a spoof. You had the Chris Evans and Anna de Armas movie, Ghosted, was basically a roles
yeah.
reverse of
I
Night
didn't
and
like
Day.
that.
Yeah, it was. There was the funniest part was the scene when Chris Evans had all of his buddies from the Marvel movies play hitmen trying
Yeah.
to find him. That was the best part of that movie. But Mr. Right with Sam Rockwell and Anna
Yeah.
Kendrick is a pretty good one.
Nice.
I don't know why he has a clown nose. That really always threw me off. That's like a big plot line. I guess he's just like a goofy hitman. He dances
Yeah.
a lot, which is Sam Rockwell's a great dancer.
He's a great dancer, dude.
So-
That's funny.
so you
he
can at least
dances in
enjoy
all
the
of his
dance.
movies.
I know. How many times have there been an Instagram Reels compilation of just Sam Rockwell like busting out a dance move out of the blue? And then a second thing that I would kind of touch on is just if you're not feeling a rom-com for Valentine's Day and you want something like more sweeping, more grand, I would say something along the lines of, and we're gonna actually be talking about this in an episode coming up, would be something like Legends of the Fall, which also should get you hyped for no better love story than the romance between Spencer Dutton and Alexandra in 1923, which is also
dude.
coming up in a couple weeks. We're like
Very close, dude.
so close. So those would be my recommendations. One, not super
Awesome.
serious. The other that has like a little more punch. I mean, I also
Yeah.
watched Legends of the Fall with my wife. Big, sweeping, romantic, epic adventure movie.
Yeah.
Definitely And like I
That
said,
one's
we'll be talking
good.
more about that soon.
Yeah, we'll get into that one. That one deserves a full on episode.
What about you, brother?
So yeah, I'll do This Means War, like follow ups,
Okay, cool.
and I don't know if it's just me, but for some reason, especially Chris Pine's character, every time I watch it, it kind of puts me in the mind of and makes me want to watch Archer, the
Nice.
TV show.
Yeah, good choice.
I I feel like yeah, his character reminds me of him with just like how confident and like kind of cocky he is, and like some of the comedy in there.
Yeah.
So they're not. I'm not saying that This Means War is like Archer's comedy. They're two different comedy styles for
Right.
sure. But if you enjoy Chris Pine's character in that, I think you would enjoy Archer, and it's just like a fun spy thing.
Yeah,
Also,
Archer's great.
not that great of a movie, but some very funny parts. Is have you ever seen Spy with Melissa McCarthy?
Uh-uh.
It's not very funny. She's
Isn't
not
that
very funny.
Jason Statham's in that?
Yeah, dude, his character. Just look up best of Jason Statham in Spy. That's what you need to do next because it is so funny. And I don't remember the lines verbatim, but it's just like always him telling you crazy spy stories and being hilarious to the point where he was like, I got this arm shot off and I sewed it back on with this arm. And you're like, dude, what? It's so funny.
Yeah,
Just
Jason Statham.
absurd Jason Statham comedy, dude. That character in that movie, amazing. So Archer, and then you're gonna YouTube best of Jason Statham in Spy, so you don't have to
Yeah,
watch the
hopefully
whole
you can
movie.
just get all of Jason Statham's scenes.
Yeah,
A supercut of them. That's
it's like
cool.
best of. It's just 30 minutes long.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. Is there anything? I think we're only a couple weeks out from something pretty big. Not only 1923, but
Yeah.
something else. You want to?
I can't.
Yeah, lay it
Yeah.
on, dude.
So the Sunday is the 1923 will come back, and that's what you said is the
23rd, I think.
23rd. Okay, so then the Tuesday that week, the 25th, you could pick up Fire in the Tall Grass, which is my Noah Redford novel, the first one to hit the novels. And Nathaniel's the only person who's read it other than an editor of mine.
And prepare to meet one of your new favorite characters, dude. If you've been paying attention, Noah Redford does show up multiple times in Fighting Heart of Man, but
Yeah.
to have a whole entire novel written about this dude in one of the most incredible, I mean, it's in the African jungles and the
Yeah.
savannah. It has some globe-trotting aspects, in that you just travel all throughout Africa.
Yeah.
So good. So good. And it's one of the most entertaining stories that I've read in a long time. I don't want to say
Thanks,
anything.
dude.
I don't want to spoil anything. But if you like Ponga Jim Mile, Indiana Jones, Nathan Drake, Spencer Dutton, dude,
Yeah,
you
dude,
got to
Spencer
read
Dutton.
this. You got to pick this up. If you watch 1923 on the 23rd and you're like, man, they only gave me one episode, I need more, immediately purchase Fire in the Tall Grass because it will scratch. It will meet your needs for Spencer Dutton, dude, and exceed them.
I appreciate the endorsement.
Of
I'm
course.
excited for other people to read it because, yeah, I'm excited for this one. I tried so hard to, like I said, make it your favorite novel, but in that of 2025, but like in that is to say, I tried to make like just the most adventurous men's adventure fiction novel I could possibly make. So it's just, it's got everything I could possibly think to shove in there, and in a fun, creative, exciting way, hopefully. So I'm looking forward to people getting to read it.
Not hopefully, it certainly succeeded.
Well, I
think,
appreciate it, too.
Yeah, this should jump to your Mission Impossible was there on my most anticipated things of 2025. Not anymore. It's Noah Redford being out in the wild for people to read. So you guys should definitely. And you just did the cover reveal a couple days ago, right?
I did, yeah. My wife did the cover for that one as well,
So
and
good.
I'm super happy with it. It looks sick.
Yeah.
He
So
looks-
go check out his Instagram and you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, thank you. The artwork on the guy himself, like Noah Redford, it reminds me of like a black and white, like Sin City or like Punisher
Oh,
type
yeah.
comic. I like how he looks. He
It's
looks
so
sick.
good.
But yeah, thank you for all the kind words about that, and hopefully you guys check it out and enjoy it. And also, thank you for sticking with us on like a different episode of the podcast for you to sit through the Valentine's Day episode and not, immediately like people did to the movies themselves and ignore them. That we appreciate that, because it's a genre and a crossover of the genres that doesn't get the credit it deserves because when it's done right, it's way too enjoyable.
It is
So
very good.
I'm glad we had this discussion and got
Right.
to talk about these movies.
And just in time for Valentine's Day. So if you
Right.
if you've never seen these, and your wife or significant other is like, all right, let's watch a movie on Valentine's Day, you can slide these over. You'd be like, I don't know, I don't really want to watch these because they're rom-coms, but we can check this out. You can do a little mental trickery.
Just
right there.
send the trailers midweek. Like after you watch this, send the trailers and be like, "What do you think of this movie?" I don't know. They're both streaming too. If you have HBO Max, that's
Okay.
where Night and Day is, and
Cool.
if you have Hulu,
Yeah,
that's where This Means
Or
War is.
Disney
or Disney
Plus.
Plus.
I was able to watch it too. So,
Yeah.
there you go.
Heck yeah, guys, enjoy.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us. Hey Red, how you doing? Any chance you're interested in a job?
Guess I'm in.
Good man.